certainly a different lifestyle. I mean, being on tour for so long and going to all those amazing places, when you stop, it's sort of a bit of an adjusting period. But I found it sort of, cleansing at the end of it, because I'd been on tour for so long and I felt I'd done as good as I could possibly do. And I felt there's time to move into some other areas of my life. And so in that way I was sort of relieved in some ways, but it was a bit weird just being in one place all the time for, just after travelling like 11 months a year for, 13 years. I've never been a big partier, so when I was on tour I was pretty, there was a lot of guys partying, but I was sort of like, I was sticking to the girls mainly, I wasn't really sort of venturing out and getting hammered too much. But that era that I was in, there was some great characters with Ockie and Potts and Tom and they like to party a bit too, so we had a good time. But there's obviously Hoyo and Laura and those sort of crew that would push the limits a little bit, but I was a bit more reserved in a few ways, and I sort of focused on the events a little bit more. But I was enjoying my life, so it wasn't all saying to it. I was a little bit more, from WA, I was a bit more backward. A lot of the guys I was competing with that were coming over for the schoolboys were like, Ockie, who's serving those GNS twin fins, Batesy, Merrick Davis and all those sort of guys. So we were all riding single fins still, and they've come over there, got 20s, and we were like, God, Paul Burnett and all those guys, Mark Himes and all that, we were sitting there just going, oh, we're so far behind, We still had nice lines, but those guys were really surfing well at that stage, and that sort of set a standard. And then I think that year that I was 17, I got second to Shane Horan at the Philishade Tracer in Perth, and that was a turning point for my career, because I had Tom Carroll staying with me and Shappy Jennings and Rabbit, and so you can imagine having all those guys at my house, a little backwards, like WA guy. My mum's like, who the hell are these guys? Are all wearing eyeliner, and it was a funny period, but really enjoyable. And then that helped me get a sponsorship with Quicksilver after that. And then I got lucky enough to come and live with Tom Carroll at Newport and train with him and get managed by Peter Manstead. So it was a good period. Yeah, I think that at the start it was a little bit hard for me because I thought I was a bit of a pretty boy, and everyone was bagging me out. I couldn't surf, and Derek Hynd was giving me a whaling in the top 30 thing. But I was pretty confident I could sort of do well and get some good results. So getting to live with Tom and train with Potts and those guys, I mean, you just can't buy that experience. And Rabbit was really good to me in the early days, because I was right at the end of that Sean Thompson Rabbit era when Tom and those guys started to come on the lean hard, and so I got a little bit of that too. And I was always a big fan of Sean Thompson and how much style he had, so I always took a lot away from him, especially the way he presented himself. And obviously he had the best girls on tour, so I wanted to carry on the tradition. Yeah, it's true, and it's like after MR, so was one of the taller guys to finish tour, and he had bad back problems. There wasn't a lot of tall guys on the tour, so. But I mean, I didn't really think about that at that time. It was just one of those things. I felt that I wasn't too tall. Like MR's like 6'4" or something, so I was only 6 foot. So I figured, I could still cut it with some of those guys anyway. And plus, I come from WA surfing really shitty waves. I mean, I was surfing waves that were just, and I was fast in those waves, and I think that helped me, because in the early days, a lot of the contests would go into these breaks that were just small wave breaks, and you had to be good in small waves to make the top 30 at that stage. Yeah, I just think I came in at a great time, and Greg Arnett was doing Oakley at the time, and he basically was speaking to Oxbow. They were a new company on the scene, and they were doing a lot of like glossy magazine catalogues where no one, like Quicksilver and Rip Curl, were doing that, and no one really knew who they were, and it was all a bit weird. Where's the money coming from? But the lady who owned it was a very creative designer, and she came in more from a fashion side than a surfing side, which put a few noses out of joint. But they had a lot of money behind them, and so Greg Arnett did a deal for me with Oxbow, and I ended up being one of the highest paid, surfers in my age group around that era. And then them just evolving in Europe at that time, they boomed. They went from like a $3 million company to 380 million in 4 years. So as I grew with them, and I was they're doing all their catalogues for them. So it was working out well for both parties, and they were looking after me like a king, I couldn't ask me anything more. I was getting the best cars, and Europe's expensive that time of year, and to have that sort of support base behind you. And the French people took me on. They liked me, and I had French girlfriends, and it just seemed like a good mix. Un petit peu. The event was pretty wild, because there was a lot of talk about all the guys, like, all the top guys going, Ken Kelly Slater, is he that good, and he came over and, he was ripping in small waves. We all knew how good he was in small waves, but they were all going, can he win in Hawaii, which he's, gone on to do. There's a lot of sceptical side of what was going on with him at that stage, and then, yeah, I ended up having Potts in the semi, and I was really good friends with Potts for a long time, and it was his, it was Gotcha Pro, so his sponsor was sponsoring it. And yeah, I was just thinking to myself, you know, in the semi, I said, you know, I got a really nice wave, it was really close between us, got a barrel right in the beach break, you know, straight into the crowd, you know, got what I needed and won the heat, but, you know, he was really dirt about it, like he was spewing. And then in classic Pot style, you know, straight after the heat, you know, he started, you know, coming up to me going, you know, you're going to beat Kelly, you're going to beat Kelly. And I actually thought I was going to beat Kelly. I was surfing pretty much, I was peaking at that stage in my career, I think. And I thought I had him. He was saying, you know, Kelly's going to Potts, you know, I'm a bit worried about Brownie, you know, he's surfing really well, he might do me. But, you know, Kelly stays, and unfortunately that he got the wood on me. But, you know, it was a great experience for that contest. There's a lot of people there, it's like 60,000 people, one of the biggest crowds ever. So I can always look back at my, you know, I remember when Kelly and myself coming in after the heat, and we couldn't even find a way in. There was this sea of people up to the waist in water, and we were looking at each other going, wow. And for him, he hadn't been overseas surfing a lot, so, you know, he was blown away too. We had these big muscly guys like trying to get us through the crowd, and it was a special moment. Yeah, it was a really special moment. And I must admit, I was running my own race at that stage, you know, and I was doing things the way I wanted to do them, and that's the way it went down. Like, some of my sponsors got a bit dirt me. Yeah, well, that's to me, it's a legacy for me, because, you know, finishing my career and then going into RA and doing that and developing the show, and that was the first thing I ever developed for TV. And, you know, Brian Warshaw has been a massive campaigner of surfing over the years through the Coke Surf Classic. You know, he was, you know, without him and his vision, RA would never have come about. I mean, like, the networks were so like conservative at that stage. Even though there was a massive market for it, they just didn't know. Obviously, that Foxtel took the chance and went on for 6 years with them. And it was a really special time for me to like see all these new young guys coming through and doing profiles on them and trying to get more television time for surfing. Yeah, I mean, like, I've been back to Perth a long time. It's just not a lot there for me. You know, I've sort of moved on. I was living in Sydney so much that when I was coming back after the tour, I'd stay here and just, you know, do the TV show or whatever anyway. You know, I still, you know, love, if I go back there, I'll still surf Cop May in seconds and go down south. And, you know, WA, I'm really proud that WA has produced so many great surfers. I mean, there's some really great guys that have come out of there. The Patterson brothers, you know, Taj, you know, I mean, all those guys, you know, Ry Craig, you know, all those guys up north. And there's some amazing waves in WA. I mean, WA has some of the best waves in the world, I think. You got, you know, Bluff, Nalu, down south, you got Margaret's and, you know, all those fabulous waves down there. And yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful spot. There's more stuff happening in Sydney for me. I never expect to be sitting in Sydney and then looking on the TV and seeing Shark Attack at North Cottesloe in Perth. I'm like, what if I know the person? Then all of a sudden I see my mother in the back of the car with an oxygen mask on, the phone's ringing. I'm sort of surreal. And I pick up my phone, my sister's like, oh, Mum's been involved in a shark attack and Dirk's been killed. And I'm like, what? You know, so it's just surreal, really. And like, you know, she was lucky. I mean, there could have been any four of them. It's a horrific story because the wife was running the beach and they all went for a swim in their pod. They swim early in the mornings, in a group of them. And, you know, they came to shore and my mum went to say, good swim, Dirk. And as she got up, the shark just, you know, it was a 5 metre white pointer. And I used to surf that little break all the time by myself. Nailed the guy, bit his leg off, they pulled him in, my mum froze thankfully and pulled the guy to shore. He bled to death unfortunately. His wife was running the beach, the family priest was up top having a coffee. It was just, you know, it was weird how it all sort of panned out, but suffice to say, like, my mum didn't want to go back in the water for a while. ASP, you know, they like to, you know, they don't want to lose Kelly Slater. I mean, he's the biggest stroker they have, you know, so I can understand they might, you know, make him miss a couple of years and get second and finally give it to him, you know, because there is a subjective thing with the ASP. But, you know, there's so many great surfers coming on tour these days with Geordie. I actually lived with Geordie's dad when he was young in South Africa when the Gunston was on, and, you know, and they were just such great people. And even then he was being groomed to be what he is today. He's, you know, on the skate ramp every day, and his dad, Graham, was just such a, you know, like a wonderful dad, the way he treated him and treated him respectfully. And obviously you've seen Geordie's style now, you know, he's got a lot of cousins that live down at J-Bay. And so he's honed his surfing like Curran did at Ring. We're back to Kelly. I mean, Kelly, you know, I think you keep winning, you know. I still think he's the best surfer by a mile. When you watch him in video, I think that's when you really appreciate how good he is. There's a few guys that run flat along the waves and pop great big airs, and, you know, I love that too. But an all-round, his power, he's got the air skills, and he's just faster, and his bottom turn, figure eight bottom turn off the top, he's almost got a double jointed back. And you know, I mean, you know, there's Geordie and those guys are a bit inconsistent at the moment, I think. Yeah, surfing's still in the blood, still in the veins.